Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Serving It Up. I'm Jim Hayes, joined by a delightful cast: Lance Lynn, Matt Holliday, Kyle Gibson may pop in. He's apparently with the family driving to a little vacation, and we wanted to get a slice of life and see the chaos. So hopefully he pops in. I think he should be there. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing? Matt, you look happy,
So happy to be here, Jim.
and I'm happy you're here. Lance, how are you?
Always great.
So, as you guys know from the list of topics that I sent out to you last Thursday, um, I wanted to get into a few different things. No, Lance, I'm sorry, Matt, you told me give us topics, and then you told me don't give us topics, so I don't send them out.
I never said either one of those things, so
You did. You said
no.
on the show. I'll go back and find the tape. We need to know the topics. Well, here's what I wanted to ask you. The Nats have gone through a managerial change, right? All of a sudden, one day, your manager's there, Martinez, and he's gone. You got the interim guy, Cairo, in there. Your GM, Rizzo, is gone. You have an interim guy brought in. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but what do you think it's like? And I'll start with you, Matt. All of a sudden, you're with one guy, and then and not just the manager, but the guy calling the shots above him, and all of a sudden it's a new day, and everything that you knew is different.
Well, I mean, I think as a player, excuse me, as a player, it's not really different. I mean, really, I mean, in reality, you go, oh wow, interesting, but you have a job to do. I mean, I think that typically there's not a whole lot, especially when you do this in the middle of the year and somebody that's already on staff takes over. There's nothing that really changes for us as players. I mean, I think that um, it's it's interesting timing. There's always a little bit of a vibe change, maybe in personality from the manager, but as a player, you don't really have time to sort of digest this. It's just like, okay, you acknowledge it, and then you have a job to do, you have work to do, you have your routine. You still have to go out there and perform on the field, and so I don't think it's I think something like this, if there's an off-season change where you have somebody that comes in and wants to change spring training up and change the culture up a little bit, and kind of that's where you might see some major differences. But a lot of times when these happen in the middle of the season, it's just business as usual. Miguel Cairo's probably doing very similar things to what Dave Martinez was doing, and so nothing really changes.
Lance, you have experienced anything like that in your tenure?
Funny you say that. Tony didn't get fired, but he got sick that year in Chicago, and Miguel Cairo was our interim manager. Matter of fact. So, I will say I love Miguel. So I wish him the best. He's great, great dude. So, and he did a great job when he was interim manager in Chicago. And he tries to keep it going, keep guys doing it. And he's played a long time in the league and had done a lot of good things in the league. So he's a good guy to kind of navigate some of these young guys through this situation. When you have a manager change in the middle of the season, especially if he's fired, I think a little bit of the feeling is there's probably two ways to look at it. It's, oh man, we played so bad we got everybody fired. So there might be a little bit of that feeling, or it's you never know. It could be like, man, thank God that guy's gone, and some of these young guys can take a deep breath and maybe start doing the things that they were expected to do when they were coming up. It's still a very young roster, so they've got a lot of good coaches there. I know quite a bit of their coaching staff, and they're all still there. So, maybe just a new voice at the top, a new few little new things here, pregame, postgame. Who knows what they're trying to accomplish there? But I know around baseball, both of those guys are very well respected, in Rizzo and Martinez. So I think it's a very interesting move, surprising move because of time of year. I think you got the draft coming up, and you're kind of trying to navigate who's going to be your future. Some of these young guys, and you're just kind of everybody that's kind of put them there is now gone. So I guess you're kind of trying out for the next regime of people that are going to come in.
So, Matt, since we bring up the draft, and I just noticed that your son is at the top of the draft board projections. I knew that all along. Don't even give me any grief over that. We've been talking about that for a long time. My question is, has it changed for you at all in terms of teams reaching out or things he has to do? Last time we did a serving it up, you said basically it's kind of like you talk a little and then they leave you alone.
Yeah, it's been really quiet, but this is a lot like how it went with Jackson. So this is kind of what we expected as far as the lead up goes. I mean, I know all these organizations are gathering, whether it's in their major league city or at their spring training site. All the scouts and all the front office are gathering somewhere probably today or tomorrow, and they start to go over their board and they start to talk about what it looks like. And so I think a lot of it, starts today, tomorrow, and then I really don't expect to hear anything probably until 30 minutes before the draft about, they start negotiating budgets, bonuses and what it would take. And they like to push it right up to the wire. And so don't really anticipate anything in the next few days. And I honestly, I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, the Nationals have definitely scouted Ethan a ton, and most of those guys, I assume, are still there and helping with this decision. Now, I don't know who makes the final call in this kind of deal where it's, is it the interim GM? Is ownership involved? Is it, the scouting director? Is it a combination of all those things? And so certainly is going to be an interesting Sunday for us.
Do you care? I mean, obviously you want the best situation for your kid, but we've seen in the past guys are like, yeah, I'm not going to play for that team, or I'm not asking you if you're going to do that. But deep down, do you have a preference where you're like, gee, I hope it's not here?
No, I mean, I think when you look at the top five, all of them are good options. It's weird when you watch these mock drafts and these people, these insider people that make these predictions, and I'm not sure where they get all their information, but it seems like the consensus is if he doesn't go one, then he probably goes four to the Rockies, which and then the Cardinals pick five. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I don't know how these people get their information, and I'm good with any of the top five. I think all of those teams are good organizations. Some of them are in a bit of a downturn that they're looking for ways to get it going in the right direction. And but it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, you certainly don't want to get too. I mean, anything can happen. Like I said, we didn't know where Jackson was going, and he ended up going to Baltimore.
I'm going to say something there that's just for clicks because we have new ownership helping us. Matt Holliday demands the Cardinals trade up to get his son. That
Yeah,
okay? I
well,
said that.
in the rules, you can't trade up in MLB draft, so we
Break
probably
the rules.
shouldn't post that. We'll lose validity for the show. Um,
Well, Jim doesn't care about that. He's all about the click. He's clickbait all day long.
I'm just trying to get clicks. Lance. Tell me your draft day story if you have one.
It was interesting. We just finished the regional in college and got beat. So you're sitting there kind of stewing over that, and then the draft came on. It's a little later now. So I guess I thought I was gonna go anywhere from pick 18 on, and then ended up going pick 39. So it can be very rewarding, or it can be very like kind of demoralizing when you're sitting there watching guys get clicked off the board. Especially, we're all kind of in the game of baseball. You kind of measure yourself against other people, and you start seeing guys go off the board that you're better than. So it starts eating at you a little bit. You're like, man, that guy's not very good, in my opinion. So just kind of, that's just kind of the inner dialogue you have with yourself. And there's some surprising picks and this and that. So you just got to be pretty much knowing that it's probably not going to go the way you think, because you know, you don't have an opinion in the situation, and whatever team picks you is going to be the team that picks you. I mean, when the Cardinals drafted me, I never talked to anybody in the organization, not one guy. I was shocked by it. I talked to 15 other teams that I thought were going to draft me, and then the Cardinals called and were like, "Hey, we're going to take you at 39." I was like, "Sounds good." And then I got drafted. No one knew I got drafted because it came across this Michael Lynn, which is my first name. So everyone's like, "Was that you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." You know, so that's what my draft thing said. So mom made me go by Lance a long time ago because she refused to call me my father's name.
Nice. So, what was your bonus, and what did you do with it?
I think I got $940,000. And I put it all. I bought a car because I did not have one. And that was it. And so then it was just go on and figure out how to get to the big league. So bought a car, and the rest was in savings.
What
Lived
kind
off
of
that
car?
$800 a month that you got in the minor leagues back then.
What
It was
what?
a Chevy Tahoe.
Nice.
Old
Okay, so you got a nice car.
2008 Chevy Tahoe. Yeah, you got to have, you know, in the minor leagues, you got to have a big enough car to pack all your shit in because when you play well enough, you're going to be on the move throughout the minor leagues. And you got to be able to load it up and go.
Matt, tell me your draft day story if you don't mind.
1998 was
Great year.
thought the Pirates at 19 or 18, something like that. I had talked to them about what it would take, and so didn't happen. They picked a left-hand pitcher from Vanderbilt, and I was frustrated by it. And then there was a lot of teams that called in the second round, and my dad was kind of handling negotiations, and basically teams thought I was going to play football, so fell to the seventh round. My uncle was a scout for the Rockies at the time and told the GM and scouting director that he thought I really wanted to play baseball and that I preferred to play baseball over going to college to play football. And so they took a shot in the seventh round and ended up signing and turned down the football. And my dad told me I could sign if they got to 500,000 after taxes. And so that's exactly what they gave me. And went to Tucson, Arizona a couple days later and wondered what the heck I did. When I landed in Tucson, I was about 125, and they drove me to the Holiday Inn on Palo Verde, right next to the SWAT meet, and got up the next morning at 6 o'clock because the early work was at 7 because it was so hot. The game was at 10. You were done by 1, and you were back in your room at the Holiday Inn Palo Verde by 1 with no car and nothing to do. So there was certainly moments where I thought, I don't know about this one. I'm not sure I did the right thing here. But yeah, you grow up in a hurry and made some good friends and start to figure out who I'm going to hang out with and how I'm going to make the best of this situation. And it was a hot couple months playing in front of no fans. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Rockies' old spring training in Tucson. It's certainly not a palace on the minor league side. So it was an interesting summer.
How close were you to sticking with football and playing in college?
Well, I mean, I don't know how close. I think going in the seventh round, I had thought that was probably what was going to end up happening. But with negotiations with the Rockies and ended up getting a 3-year deal on the bonus instead of 6, to where after 3 years I could go back and play football without paying back any of the bonus. Some creative negotiations later. Felt like I wanted to pursue baseball. That was my dream, was to be a Major League Baseball player. And once we got to the financials that my parents were comfortable with, I was excited about going and playing.
Was there honestly a moment while you're in that hotel in Tucson where you're thinking, I made a big mistake? Is that legit?
Yeah, I mean, I think you certainly, as a kid, you go, well, I could potentially be playing in front of, 50,000 fans in college football, and I mean, especially when you go 0 for 4 and it's 140, and you've eaten soup for lunch. Uh, you wonder what what you're doing.
Soup in the
But
desert, baby.
yeah, I mean, the good thing is I had a couple buddies that had gotten drafted out. Chew Freeman was a high school football star in Texas and was signed at A&M, and the Rockies picked him in the second round or first round, and so we were kind of in the same boat together, and we made fast friends, and so it was good. It's like anything else. Once you get your group of friends and your teammates, you start having a little bit of fun, and you start having your guys. It becomes a lot easier, and so that takes a minute. Everybody like kind of looked at each other, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I need to find some friends here. And once that happens, it becomes a little bit more fun.
Yeah, because you're all in it together. Lance, do you have any horror stories from the minor leagues before you became a wealthy major league athlete?
I went to Batavia, New York after signing my deal, which was I don't even know if the Penn League exists anymore. If you've never been to Batavia,
I
it's a
have.
beautiful place. There's Buffalo, and then there's Rochester, and it's down here where you can barely see it on a map. Um, we had a bunch of kids. I mean, we were just drafted, so it was the short season league. So everybody hadn't got their signing bonus yet, hadn't got anything yet. So whatever, I went to the minor leagues with $20 to my name, and that's what I had until I got my first check 2 weeks later. And we were riding around on bikes in Batavia, New York. Nobody had cars, nobody had anything. So we had three guys to one bedroom at a host family's house, and well, I guess there was a closet, so there was two full beds in a closet or something. So it was interesting. There's no other way to say it. So that was the start of it, and I was like, man, I probably should have stayed at Ole Miss. It was it was a lot better. SEC baseball to the Penn League was way more fun. But I was able to move out of there pretty quick, and next thing I know, I was in AAA by the end of the next year. So that
So
was
there was
close
no
to.
time for regret for you. There was no time for regret.
I'll tell you what, when I was riding a bike around Batavia, New York, I was like, what are we doing?
Did it
I
have a little
was
bell on it? Did it have a little ring ring? Here comes
no,
Lance.
no, I don't think the brakes work. So I was using my foot to kind of pump the brakes on the tire. So it was, when you look back at it now, it was fun. But when at the time, I was like, man, Oxford, Mississippi was way more fun for me to play baseball at that moment.
So the major league season is almost at the All Star break, and it's been a grind. So I mean, I'm taking the Cardinals' perspective on this. Like I think everyone's playing banged up. Guys are waiting to come off the injury list, like Herrera. They just got Nolan back, who had a shoulder impingement. Matt, when you think back of your career at this point in the season, how banged up are you most years, and how much of a mental grind have you had to push through?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a year to year deal individually. Some years you feel pretty good and you're pretty healthy, and some years you're a little banged up and you're kind of on fumes as the All-Star break approaches. I like the idea that everybody has 4 days off now. It used to be there was teams that had 3 days off, and that was felt like it wasn't much of a break. You really didn't have time to go anywhere and get back. So having 4 days, I think, is good. I think, like I said, depending on how the team's playing and all that kind of plays into how you feel about going into the break. But I always looked at it like this is where my off-season training and my discipline will start to come into play, where other guys are starting to fade and feel the effects of a long season and the heat and it's getting hot and guys are starting to pitcher stuff's ticking down a little. Position players are not feeling as strong. This is where I felt like I why you train in the off season so hard is that you have have the mental and physical edge the last 2.5 months of the season. So that was a little game I played in my mind about how I was going to stay strong through the end. But yeah, I mean, you get into these stretches now where, you play 15, 16, 17 days in a row. And not, you go through runs where there's very minimal off days. By the time the All-Star break gets here, you feel like, yeah, I need 4 days to sort of just relax a little bit, let my body feel better, let my brain take a break, and then, get ready for a strong final push.
How about you, Lance? Were there times at the midway point, not really the midway point, but the All-Star break, you're like, yeah, I needed that because I can't go anymore?
Yeah, like you said, it was season by season. There was times where I manipulated the All-Star break, or you would see pitchers, especially manipulate the All-Star break as hey, I can go on the back end when we get back if a guy's banged up and stuff like that. So it was definitely a time where you could use that because you know everyone's going to get a break, and you're not pushing a guy up where he's got to go on, say, normal rest again because you need a couple extra days. So there's times when you maneuver that, and there was times when I was like, hey, I'll go ahead of this guy because I know he's banged up too. So it's kind of that time where you're like, you're not putting anybody out to help him out by giving him an extra day. But it was a perfect time for it too, because you're in that 18 to 20, what, 16 to 18 start range. That's that kind of just over midway. So you can give yourself like a 7 day breather. I always hated having more than 7 days though. So it's kind of one of those things where how can you manipulate giving the time off you need, but also stacking the rotation, especially if you're trying to make a playoff push, and hey, how many starts you need to get your top three guys down the stretch to catch a team, or what lines up after the break. So all in all, it's definitely welcome. We always joke, right? Once you get through April, everyone's like, man, when's the break? It's kind of like, especially once it starts getting warmer, you're like, all right, when's the All-Star break? I need a 4 day breather. But if you use it right, it's really good way to like really jumpstart the second half for you, especially for teams that are trying to make a push.
Matt, if you're named to the All-Star team and you need a break, it seems like while it's an honor, maybe the first couple times, right? I mean, I know you're glad to be there, but so there are some times I'm sure where you probably needed a break and to just get away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly can be sort of a catch-22 where, you're honored. You feel like making an all-star team in the major leagues is not something you ever take for granted. You never know when it's going to be your last. And so I always was excited about it. I mean, it's an incredible honor. But, by the time you fly there, and then Monday they have the home run derby. You have a lot of late night. I mean, they drag it on. It goes late. If you stay the whole time, you don't get out of there. You want to see family. Lots of family flew in. Usually Monday's pretty late, and then you got Tuesday, which is the All Star game. You got the parade. You got the all that stuff leading up to the All Star game. They have tons of autographs for you to sign. And then you either leave right after the game, which would create a really late night that night, or you wait until Wednesday. By then, the break's pretty much over, so you're probably heading back to wherever the next game or the second half starts up. So you really don't get much of a break. A lot of times, if I remember correctly, the manager would give a guy maybe the first game off to get like a little bit of a break. But it goes quick. When you make the team, it's a lot. You usually come out of it maybe a little bit more tired than you were going into it. But like I said, I would never, it's an honor that you can't turn it down. You get excited about it. It's fun. There's a lot of, it's great. I mean, it's worth going. It's a busy time.
Let me ask you, Lance, about how you get through a season as you get older, because we're seeing some veteran guys with the Cardinals now, particularly Miles scuffling. Um, we see Fetty scuffling, and people are like, DFAM. I don't know if you've watched Miles, but this is a veteran guy who knows how to pitch. He's he's had some good stretches this year, right? He's kept his team in games. They've won some games, but the last couple, I mean, he gave up 6 homers. So as have you been through that where I know you've been everyone's had bad outings, but you realize, okay, I got to kind of do things totally different. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody goes through stages where you feel like anything you do or try is not working. So you got to kind of like when you get through those spots, you got to kind of break it down, like in a simple form of, Miles throws like 6 different pitches, this and that. Right now, the home runs there. Chicago in July, right? The ball, you got to keep the ball down and keep the ball on the ground there. There's really no other way to say it in that time of year. But I think if you simplify it, it's like, hey, what are my best 3 pitches instead of trying to throw everything? And then his command. I mean, you look at that game, there's a lot of misses and there misses in the heart of the plate. So those, if you look at him, it's very fixable because he's a guy that can throw the ball where he wants to and with multiple different pitches. So it's what is going on, maybe mechanically, or is he in between pitches to where he's not executing them because he doesn't, is he trying to something new and not fully committed. So he's got the ability and the stuff to make the adjustments. The question is and number one for him is he's got to have command. Right now, his command, especially in that game, was that hurting. And then when you get into that situation, and then you get behind in counts, and then you're missing the middle of the plate. Bad things happen usually for pitchers. So the ship is easily righted in this sense of command the ball on the edges more and get yourself in pitchers counts. And I think you can go from there and have some better success. But also maybe even simplifying it as in, hey, this righty or this lefty, these are my 3 pitches instead of thinking, oh, I can throw this and this and this, because Miles is very creative at times. As everyone's seen him speak and been around him, he's got a beautiful mind, but sometimes that can cause havoc on the mound when you got 1,000 different pitch ideas and thought processes of shapes and this and that. And next thing you know, it's like, why didn't that work? And you go back and look. The gist of it is you threw it down the middle and you missed your spot. So it's maybe honing in on of command first, then simplifying it as here's my best 3 pitches. Then once I get those locked back in command wise, then I can start, adding in the 4th and 5th pitches when it's time.
Have you reached out at all? I mean, teammates, I know you like them. Have you given any feedback, or you just watch from afar? I'm just curious.
We've talked about it before. You watch from afar, and if a guy reaches out and asks questions, or wants to just talk, you're there for him. You just kind of let him know, hey man, keep doing your thing. Here for you. If you need anything, let me know. Because sometimes it's just good to talk to someone and that's not there with you every day. They might see something a little different or say something, and there might be just a terminology that is being said to you every day that's not clicking, but you can just say the guy could say the same thing just in a different phrase, different way to say it, and then next thing you know, it clicks for you. So, and I've done that in the past. I remember we used to call Westbrook and Lackey and those guys. I'm like, hey, are you watching any of this? Do I suck, or am I just having bad luck? And they'd always tell me I sucked, so that was good, and that got me going.
So, Matt, I know you watch a lot of Cardinal baseball. Was he tipping his pitches? Did you see anything? Because I know you have an eye for that sort of thing. I don't know if you picked up on anything.
I think, like Lance said, a lot of times guys are like, when they give up homers, they're like, oh, I must be tipping. And I'm like, if it's a warm day in Chicago and you're throwing the ball in the middle of the plate, like, if you need that to help your confidence that I was tipping, then go for it. But in my experience, there's very few guys that see tips in the box and can use them successfully. I mean, yes, it happens occasionally when it's pretty blatant, but I'm guessing these days as many people are watching for that stuff in your own organization, on your own staff, in your own front office, who are watching every single pitch. I mean, shoot, there's probably AI technology seeing if pitchers are doing something different to try to figure out if they're tipping. And a lot of times, even if they are tipping, it's so subtle that as a hitter, I don't have time to be looking at your glove. I mean, unless you're just blatant, like high on your set and then low on your set, like unless it's that kind of move, like as a hitter, I can't be in between, and I have to be sure. So my guess is he probably wasn't. They didn't have a tip on him. He was just making too many mistakes, like Lance said, in the middle of play, and that kind of thing. And I was curious, Lance. I mean, nowadays, like these guys have 5 and 6 pitches, and they're throwing a curve, slider, and a sweeper. I'm like, how do they, the arm slot and the hand grip, how does it not morph into one? Like, I don't know. I remember, at least for us when we played, if a guy had 3 good pitches, you were like, wow, he uses all 3. Like, he's probably going to be a starter. Or, man, he has 4 pitches. I'm like, well, surely his curveball or his sliders, one of them's not as good as the other. You can take out one of them. But now you see all these guys throwing, 5, 6 pitches. They're throwing sweepers and sliders. And I'm like, I don't know how they distinguish between 3 different breaking balls.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that's something that, as the course of the year goes on, some of them can morph into a similar pitch, and then it makes it not a good pitch. So it's like, hey, that's what I was saying. If he maybe brings it back into, hey, what are my top 3 pitches, and then if I need to sprinkle a fourth in that day, here's my fourth. Because as the season goes on, if you don't have the ability to fully separate each pitch, you're going to have times where they morph into it. I'd always have an issue throughout the year where my four seam would start cutting a little bit because of my cutter. So I really had to concentrate in my bullpens. And that's something I learned as I got older, is to make sure I kept my four seam on that ride, and kept the vert on it. And then, so I didn't bring it down. And then next thing you know, my four seam's just a cutter that's, not as good as my cutter, or vice versa. So that was my big thing as a year went on, is making sure I kept that separation. And if you're throwing a cutter, slider, and a curveball or a sweeper, like, it can easily start morphing into the same thing. So you got to really concentrate on that, and you got to know what your best 3 pitches are. And here's how I'm going to go. And then the days you have 4 and 5 are the fun days, right? But how can I manage and make a quality start with 3 pitches? And that's kind of how I tried to break it down throughout the years. And then I just turned into a 3 pitch pitcher and said, screw it. Here's my four seam sinker and cutter. And if I have a curveball that day, everyone's in trouble. But I'm only gonna throw it 5 times, even if I have it.
So Matt brings up a point that I've often wondered about, especially with the Cardinals, where back in the day it was like all the starters watched everyone's bullpen and analyzed it. That's why I always thought it was odd when Wayno said he wasn't stepping out enough in his mechanics, that he didn't realize it because there's so many eyes on him. So if you're watching each other starts, right? Pitchers, I think, are the best outside of Jim Edmonds, who was crazy at picking out tells. Oh, don't you guys police each other where you would know if someone was developing a tell or tipping a pitch?
Yeah, especially tips. Tips are about the easiest thing that you can, especially because it's usually glove, hand, or something you're doing body part wise. You're going to be able to see that from front and behind. And then, like you said, if you got something that they can see in the box, it's so obvious that you're not going to do it. It's going to be seen quick. Usually, you see anything, it's usually at second or runner on, whether it's your glove in your hand or something like that. Which that's just being able to put it to a glove close to your body, or turning it up and hiding it a little bit better. So yes, when it comes to tips and that thing, it should be seen. If it's obvious for them to see it in the box, everyone in the dang stadium should see it. To be to be honest, like Matt said, if they're going to be able to use it in the box, you're going to be able to see it on TV, or you're going to be able to see it from the stands or dugout. Now, when it comes to like creating mechanical issues nowadays, with every bullpen you throw and every time you're on a mound, you have a a printout of how your body works, your stride length, your extension, your height, everything. So if you're paying attention to when you're right, which everybody should be, hey, this pitch wasn't good. And you go back and look, well, my extension was a touch uh further back or not as far, and then which was causing me to be a little higher, which was causing my angle and my axis to be a little different. So you should know that on your own. And if you don't know when you're good and why you're good, then you probably shouldn't be in the big leagues.
Don't you kind of have a feel for it though? Like it's been my experience over the years talking to pitchers. They can self-diagnose even without the video helps and the information's great. But don't you guys kind of have a feel for where it went awry?
Well, you say that, but now everybody grabs the ball and throws as hard as they can. So there's not a whole lot of feel, as we've talked about on this podcast. It's more of, hey, I'm just going to throw the ball as hard as I can and hope for the best. And when they don't know why it's not working, they don't know how to fix it. I would tell you this: what I was taught coming up is figure out what your, like you said, what your best three pitches are. But something might not be there that day, and they're not taught what's your second and third option and how are you going to figure out how to get through the game. They're just taught to keep firing away, and it should go your way because your spin rates are great and your vertical and horizontal are where they're supposed to be. But what if something's off that day and your vert's not as high? So for me, it was like, okay, my vert's not as high on my force team today, so I'm just going to go sinker cutter, and then I'm going to shoot one up every once in a while just to keep them thinking about it and not doing all that. So the art of pitching is going away, and I think that's when you're seeing some of these guys. It's either, hey, I got my best stuff today and I'm fine, or oh, it's just not my day, come get me, I'm done, and it's a bullpen's day. It's like, no, when it's not your day and you give up 3 in the first, I was told real early, you better get to the 6th and you better figure out how to get to the 6th.
So, Matt, not an accusation, but just a gut feeling. We talk about how technology has advanced. Do you think, and certainly there are people policing this stuff, but do you think there are people trying to use technology to cheat a little bit still? I'm not trying to point fingers, but it just seems to me that it it's too obvious that someone would try to use technology to figure out what a guy's throwing and alert hitters or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think from the pitch calling, the pitch comm thing now, I mean, we've got that figured out. Like, there's not, you can't steal signs.
You say that there's guys in the dugout zooming in on trying to see where the guy, if they can push a button like the side, because the buttons are like, oh, if he's high, that might be hard. This is soft down low. That's how it's still there. There's always that little edge they're trying to find.
Again, though, the time that it would take to relay that to a hitter, as a hitter, I'm like, I don't want to hear you trying to relay that. It's too late. So maybe like, yeah, I mean, look, there's always going to be things where people are trying to get an edge. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, there's going to be, it's just whether or not it's really actually usable. Like, okay, yeah, you have AI technology that can put on a pitcher, and when he throws this pitch, his hand is like this, and when he throws this pitch, it's like this. Okay, is that usable? Like, can I see that as a hitter? Okay, you got it on AI, or you've got this picture of it, but how can we make that actually usable? And I think that there's still as the sport goes, it's so fast. As a hitter, I can't have a cluttered mind. I can't be questioning whether I see it or I don't see it. A lot of times, even if we had a pretty good tell, like if I didn't get it 100% of the time on deck, then I'm not using it. Like I can't go up there in between in a big spot and be guessing whether or not I have the tip. And so, even back when they relayed signs at second, like I don't fully trust that you have the right pitch. All it takes is like,
True.
and then if you give me the wrong pitch, then I give myself up. And, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I just never really fully trusted any of that. And
Did it
so
ever happen? Did that ever happen?
sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times in your career where a guy is trying to relay a sign from second, it's the wrong one. And you're like, okay, that was not it. Like you don't have them. So, I think, like Lance said, there's always going to be people trying to. I mean, shoot, the guys on the bench are bored. Like, yeah, they're looking at the catcher to see if they can figure out his finger muscles, if they're pressing the fastball or curveball on the pitch comm, or if a pitcher is doing his little deal on his waist, and he's. But how can I get that information to my hitter in time for him to use it? And that's where I'm like, I don't know. I don't think. I think the game is. It's too hard to have 10 different things in your mind.
It's got to be pretty obvious, Jim.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think that it's still there's people still trying, Lance?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There's things, and like like Gibson, Kyle was one of the best I've seen at. It doesn't matter who was on the mound. He's looking, trying to see something going from there. That's like especially as starting pitchers 4 out of 5 days, you got nothing to do during the game except try to help, try to find something. And you see they watch catchers to see if there's a need that's going down certain or a way that they are setting up or something like that. There's those all those tells, and if you got something that's obvious and done soon enough for guys to do it, it can definitely be a helpful tool. But there's a lot of things Matt was saying. There's things that are so late that and it's just too late. But Matt can say if the guy's got 3 pitches and you can eliminate a pitch in the side of a plate, you're trying to do it. And that's all they're trying to do. They're not trying to get every pitch. They're trying to eliminate one pitch, one side of the plate, and the next thing you know, a 3-pitch pitcher goes to a 2-pitch pitcher, and then I don't have to worry about that side of the plate because that's where he throws that third pitch, and I got it, and I don't need to worry about it until I get 2 strikes.
I wanted to ask you guys, because you guys both still follow the Cardinals, still have friends with the organization, how you would handle the trade deadline. So I'm going to start with you, Matt. Understanding that just your opinion and everything, but the Cardinals right now, John Mozeliak said, we don't know really where we are until we know where we are before we decide how we're going to handle it. But if the Cardinals, let's say, win, what do they got, 4 games left before the All-Star break, win 3 of 4, go in a better direction, and there's still a team in contention. Right now they're contending for a wild card spot. How would you handle that whole buyer or seller thing?
I mean, I think they're in the classic case of trying to do both. Like you can't go all in where you trade a prospect that you think has high upside. But I think if you find the right deal where you can take on some money and pick up a player that you think is helpful because the payroll is not as high this year as it typically is, and so if you can acquire a good veteran player at a position of need by taking on their salary, I think that's something you should explore. I think if you look to shore up maybe a bullpen piece, and you see you have a depth of a position and prospects where you can give up somebody that is a good player, but sometimes it takes trading a good player to get a good player. So I think they're in that position where I don't think you sell off the future. But I also think that if you see an opportunity to add to the current team to help them make the playoffs, I think you got to take advantage of that too. And like I said, I think payroll flexibility right now is probably more than they've had in a long time. So there's teams that would like to get out from under certain contracts that you can maybe take on and not have to give up too much for it.
And they have redundancy at some positions too, which you would think would offer up, options for dealing. How would you handle it, Lance?
Well, you got me right there. That was kind of where I was going to go. I would use you've got guys that it's time to, hey, you're our guy, and the guy that's plays that same position and or does a lot of similar things. Hey, maybe you'd see which guy we can get the most for, and then what can help our team not only now but also will plug in our holes that we have coming this year and the following year. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing is there's a way that you could do both, and that's how you do it. Where you're deep in certain positions or the same type of player on your team, figure out how to move them for the pieces you need, not only now but for the future. And you got some arms coming up that are very capable of stepping in and doing things, starters and relievers. So then maybe you can get rid of a bullpen piece, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But you've got a guy that replaces him, and then it makes you better in another position, not only now in the future. So I think there's a little bit of both going here. I mean, you can probably shed some salary and get the pieces you need to make your team better. So it's a weird time for them, right? Because there's gonna be a move that people are like, oh, we're selling, but it might not be a sell when you really look at it, not only for the now but for the future, because it gives a guy now that's ready to go, that is ready because he's in house, And then you also got another prospect or two that really puts your system deeper for the future that you have coming up. And you got some money that you got off the books for to be able to use maybe in another trade where you take on some salary that makes your team deeper as you go here in the season.
Matt, you mentioned bullpen piece. What one area do you think the Cards, if they were going to add, could really use?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what you're willing to do. If you're trying to make a big splash, or if you're looking at trying to make just some moves that don't cost you too much, then you're probably looking at bullpen or a kind of a platoon type player. But look, they've done really well in on all three aspects at times, and they've struggled in some ways in all three times. So, at times Fetty and Michaelis have pitched really well, and their rotation has looked very, good and is getting them deep into games, which is allowing their bullpen guys to stay fresh. And then they've had periods now where the starters have got beat up a little bit, and now it's stretching your bullpen, and guys are getting stretched out a little bit, and now their stuff's ticking back. And so I think they're in a position where they could look at all three areas. And like Lance said, you're kind of open for business on all the areas. I mean, it's always helpful if you can add a back end reliever, because there's going to be days where your eighth inning guys pitch 2 days in a row and you need a good fill in, or you got your closers pitched a couple times in a row and everybody slides back an inning. So getting a really good reliever is always a good option no matter where you're at. And then, like I said, I think most of their position players are either, like starters going to be there for a while. And so I don't think that there's like as far as like adding a big offensive piece, I don't see that happening. But anything, I would just be open for anything and looking for ways to improve the team that don't necessarily, you're not trading Hintz or Weatherholt or, some of these minor league guys that you think are a big part of your future. But I think outside of, those handful of guys, I think you're open for business.
All right, last thing, gentlemen, and because I always find it funny where people say, look, the guys on the team don't want to trade because they believe in each other, and they don't want to see one of their teammates go. But that's not true. I know that everyone on the team is hoping they don't get traded or whatever, right? But Lance, everyone wants an upgrade. If you're on a team that's close or in position to be in the playoffs, you want to see an upgrade, correct?
Yeah, because you always feel like, in the sense of it, you always feel like the organization believes in you and you got a chance. So that's kind of like hey, it gives you a jolt. Obviously, there's ways that you can kill a clubhouse though if you trade the wrong people. So, like you said, that's where it's like you don't want to see anybody go. There's certain trades that I've seen that have kind of killed the clubhouse. So
Give me
you
an
don't want to
example
do.
if you can.
I mean, you're looking at you just look at the ways that some of these things go about. I'm trying to think. I had one in mind. Uh, we had so when we were I was in Chicago. We traded away a Cody Hoyer and Nick Magical, which we got Craig Kimbrell back, which is a Hall of Fame closer. But at the time, we had Liam Hendricks, so it was kind of one of those looks like, okay, but no one knew who was going to close, and then it kind of just got weird for a minute. So and when you look at it as a whole, like it was a boost, right? Everyone's like, "Cool, we got," but then it was like, "Okay, who's our closer?" And they're both pretty darn good. And then you're just like, it kind of create. Sometimes you can create a weirdness, and then it's not a problem, but you're looking at two elite closers at that time. So I think that was a time where I was like, man, our bullpen got better, right? But we also like it's kind of like a weird fit. I don't, so there's times when it's like, okay, if we're gonna get this guy, but it might take a guy out of the lineup that's just a guy that it gets you going, or there's just all kinds of different flows. So it's tough for GMs to know, the kind of the rhythm of the team too. So if you're really going for it, you got to make sure you don't hurt that rhythm, but know a guy that's going to come in that's going to jump right into that rhythm and help it. So there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration when you're making some trades.
And Matt, just your thoughts on the the team wanting an upgrade, even if it means one of those guys in that clubhouse is going elsewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you feel like you're on the cusp, or you feel like you're close, and that if your front office will just maybe make a trade, maybe bring in a guy. A lot of times the team knows the need, or where the hole is, or where at least we always knew, like, who the trade rumors were and what guys they were considering, and sort of the targets. And I think that there's teams that are close, and when they don't do anything, when you get to it and they don't do anything, I think that's where the team gets a little frustrated that the front office didn't help them. But yeah, I mean, I think as a group, you're like, yeah, if we could add this guy or that guy, and that'll give us a boost. That could really, I think a lot of times it's August, it's July 31st, and then it's August. You get a boost of, like, it's like a breath of fresh air. You get somebody that comes in, that's excited to be there, that jumps in the middle. It kind of gives the whole team a pick me up. So I think that's something that it always, you felt like you were getting. It kind of gave the team a little push as it got into the hot, long days of summer. But like Lance said, sometimes you got to be careful about trading guys that seem to be glue guys, and a lot of times we wanted minor leaguers traded, right? So because we didn't want anybody on our big league team going anywhere. So
Yeah.
that's not always how it works, but the guys have opinions. Like, we watch and track baseball and play GM in our brains, and we think we always know what's best, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And so it's always the trade deadline's always fascinating, just because it does shake up chemistry, it shakes up positions, and sometimes it works great, and sometimes it works terrible.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's always fun to watch what teams do before the trade deadline. Also fun to watch the draft. Matt, good luck to you and your boy Ethan. We're all pulling that he goes number one. Gentlemen, you were great. I was mediocre, but that's going to do it.
I thought
for
Kyle
this-
killed it. Yeah.
What's that?
I thought Kyle killed it.
Kyle was no show because I guess he's with his family. But
Yeah.
you guys were great. You picked
You
up the
start
slack.
going on trips. You start going on trips.
Yeah.
And then
Retirement life. He's not reliable.
Start going on trips.
This is the perfect retirement job. Serving it up is a retirement plan. You watch. We're going to get rich off this.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to get rich. Well, you're already rich. I'm going to get enough to buy lunch from this. Gentlemen, thank you.
Get you a new Reebok T-shirt, Jim.
You don't like this one?
No, I was just saying you can get another one.
All right, I'll get another one. And that'll do it for this edition. Hopefully, we'll see you next time. And that episode will not be awful.